During the summer of 1985, it was a time of intense work on the construction site. I'd been commissioned to build a big business centre in London. One night at my house, I couldn't fall asleep. I decided to get up and go for a walk, but just before I did that, I imagined or visualised an exact point in the woods near my house. I thought walking would relax me, so I decided to go to this place, in the woods under a tree. It was exactly like the place that I'd imagined. I saw a sphere of light about 30 centimetres in diameter. It had a lot of colours changing very quickly. I didn't remember anything after that vision for about 5 hours. Later I found myself on a path to my house. My life went on as normal after that, but I was afraid to think about that night and what had happened. After 2 weeks, I made the final draft for the structure of the business centre and showed it to the client, who enthusiastically accepted it. I was glad for that and began to forget about that night and that it had been so mysterious. In these times now today, our perception of our place in the universe and cosmos has changed. I no longer fear that night or think of it even as anything special. Nobody told me anything. The information just arrived in my brain about who survived the catastrophe of 2012. The sphere emanated a frequency that at first made me feel faint, but then it synthesized the waves of my brain in such a way that I entered a parallel dimension where space and time can only be travelled with the mind. During the 5 hours where I lost consciousness, I went to a place far from the Earth. I visited the Andromeda constellation, where there was a planet that was home to a very advanced civilization. Here, there had occurred a massive change that should have happened here on Earth. Our universe constantly regenerates, causing inversions of the magnetic polarity of the stars and the planets. Because of this, many civilizations in the universe must change their habits and invent new ways of survival at this momentous time of change. On the planet that I visited, I saw huge structures swaying and fluctuating in the air, waiting to land when the cataclysm was finished. Every living creature is endowed with information capable of guaranteeing that the universe will continue to function. From my extraordinary trip, I don't remember anything but the shape of the fluctuating structure. That's all that remains in my mind. When I regained my memory in 2012, I realised that I must have seen some of my architecture on that trip. I must have been abducted for about 5 hours. My mission from there was to reproduce on Earth some of the structures that I'd witnessed on that planet. About 80 years ago, the people had begun to rebuild the structures that resembled flying objects and spaceships, buildings that followed the design principles of spacecraft. Thanks to the design constructed unwittingly by the builders and architects as a result of the plan of the aliens, life could continue on Earth after the cataclysm. These curvilinear forms allow the architectural structures to move with ease along and float above the energy lines that the Earth emits naturally through its undulating movement. The plan was transmitted telepathically in a way that the chosen architects didn't realise the origin or the source of ideas, and they presumed them to be their own. From 2012 on, the individual people and whole families were invited to enter the architectural structures as part of a precise plan. The invitation was manifest as an irresistible impulse to go to those places where it was possible to commence and realise the salvation of our humankind. The chosen ones then often responded to the impulses to stay on the spacecraft that would then take off, but caused incredible fear of the unknown and panic. The major fluctuations went on for about 40 days while the Earth was stricken with the biggest environmental disaster ever known since the time of the flood. More than 2 million people saw before their eyes a huge devastation that overtook the Earth. Consequently, what we see today is a planet totally regenerated and profoundly changed. Our animistic energy is like the nutrition or like the food for the gods, the aliens. They feed on our vibrations through our prayers. In much the same way, other inhabitants of the cosmos live through this agency too. All humans were originally created from alien civilizations. They underwrote our culture and our religion. One of these nascent empires saved many earthlings during the cataclysm of 2012. Before 2012, many people said they'd witnessed extraterrestrial landings, but these were always denied by the authorities. There were more than 1,000 people who came into contact with the aliens, but they were constantly ridiculed. Sightings were hushed up, and inevitably no one really spoke out anymore. The civilization that abducted me knew how to exploit the force of sway and rotation of celestial bodies. This force naturally exceeded the force of gravity and was used to control objects around these invisible arteries of the universe. This force field has been known since ancient times, when they built sacred sites along the path to exploit their communicative functions between the Earth and the cosmos. But the passing of information often ran into disturbances and blockages. Because of these, the Earth became cut off for a long time. The paths could only be used as output signals and were just communicated back into the Earth's network. This extraterrestrial civilization did their best to free us from this restriction. The central nervous system of the universe operates like a galactic railway through which they have the knowledge and the means to reach faraway space. Thanks to the continuing presence of the nascent force, information that couldn't be transmitted normally was communicated by signals employed in abductions and crop circles. The other homogeny that had severed our ability to communicate was being nourished by our collective vibrations. This power that was needed for the universe to function well was being partitioned and hoarded by them. As a result of this, our channels of reception became congested and consequently hindered our progress. The accelerated accumulation of knowledge on the Earth during the century prior to 2012 and the new ways of functioning that it produced can really be explained by the interventions of those who are assisting in our evolution. In defeating the civilization that was depleting humankind, the aliens who came to help us had no other choice but to push us forward to become aware of the cosmic nature of events by forcing our evolution forward. When the earthquakes and tremors ceased, the waters found new levels, and the expanding seas finally ebbed, these arcs of the future, containing the survivors, managed to converge, rotating and floating in a holding pattern above the sea. As they finally gathered to form a geometric galactic pattern of powerful beauty, they were able to land again. A new era of urban agglomeration in harmony with the energies of our cosmos had been signalled. What we have called evolution is in fact the propagation of energy from the centre of our galaxy. Change radiating from the centre of the Milky Way has produced what is currently happening now on Earth. What happens on Earth has already occurred at a cosmic level closer to the Milky Way. The change is radiating from its centre so that in the future, planets farther from us will relive the same experience we went through in 2012. From this centre of propagation, information travels at the speed of light. Light from the stars reaches the Earth after hundreds of thousands of years. It is of utmost importance that no inhabited planet ever stops transmitting its life force and vibration. That's why our mission for the future is to maintain the information flow and allow it to reach even the most remote inhabited planets. The destiny of our universe is finite. It'll end. And we're here to keep it, the end, far away.